Blog Talk Radio.
Blog Talk Radio. That was my
Welcome,
little echo.
everybody. It is Friday night, July 5th, 2019, and we welcome you to the living room of the Lighthouse. This is the Sacred Embers team that will be doing a discussion show, and we will not be doing free readings during this show. It's all about learning, sharing, and growth. Tonight's panel, you have Shannon Johnson, myself, Kevin Westerlund, and Heather Hilton Hartford are on the air. And please join us in the chat room as well. A couple of our members are also in there. And we would love to hear some of your experiences and any questions you have in regards to tonight's topic. And we are talking about Mercury Retrograde, July 2019. It's an exciting time. Dun, dun. It's a crazy time. I'm going to have to look for some music recording that does that, you know, just a dun, dun,
right. I'm usually the music recording on our shows. You never know what to expect when Heather's on. I like to sing sometimes randomly, so I'm happy to be the sound effects.
Okay.
So here we go.
Here we go. So who would like to start off and share a little bit about what we got going on here astrologically that's throwing everybody into a little bit of chaos?
Well, I'll just start by saying Mercury retrograde. It happens, 4 times this year? Is it 4 times?
It'll be 3 times this year.
All right, 3 times this year. So, it's a phase astrologically that we go through where things kind of seem somewhat chaotic on different levels. Not all Mercury retrogrades are the same. So, you know, if you hear, oh, God, it's Mercury retrograde, don't think that it's always a bad thing, because it isn't. It's actually always a good thing. So we don't want to look at it as the big bad monster, even though it does mess with our electronics and mess with, you know, our lives seem to be sometimes flipped upside down, but that is for us to learn and grow. There are always blessings in chaos. I look at it that way. But sometimes, you know, depending on what sign it is, it can be a positive thing for, you know, it's like this one is in, I think it's Cancer. Is it Cancer?
And
it's, Cancer and Leo. So it's about, you know, watching what you say. But there are some positive notes on that to where it's where we can, actually all Mercury retrogrades are where we can look at our shadow side. It's a good opportunity to look at where can we change where we are in life, what we're doing, how we're responding to situations to positively affect our lives, to move forward in the best health and healing of our growth. So I use Mercury retrograde every time to find out what it is that I need to look at and how I am responding to day-to-day routines and what I say, what I do, and I learn from it. But, you know, honestly, I'm not a big astrological person. I don't know a whole lot about astrology. I know some, but not a ton. But I do know that Mercury retrograde is a time for me to go deep and learn about myself. And it's not, I don't look at it as the outside world is coming to beat me up or all kinds of shit's going to hit the fan. And it does sometimes, I ain't going to lie. But, you know, I don't try to look at it that way. I look at it as, well, what do I need to watch out for during this time? What's going to be like boiling at the surface? And it just keeps us aware of our shadow side and you know, how that shadow side can be sparked by the retrograde and what we can do about it to heal it. So that's my little take on it.
Awesome.
I try to be cup half full kind of girl, I try. Even though Facebook has been completely upside down for the past few days.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, God damn, I won't post any of my pictures. Shit. And then I'm like, okay, watch your mouth. Mercury Retrograde and Cancer coming up. You can't be saying all these nasty words. All right, I'll pass it on to somebody else.
Kevin, did you want to jump in now, or you want me to go ahead?
Go ahead. You probably know a lot more about the astrological side of it than I do. So
I've been learning as I go along here with astrology more and more. It used to be one of those things you were like, oh, my little sun sign, it's so happy, and then you start digging into it, and you go, oh wow, this explains so much more. So this Mercury retrograde is starting in Leo. It'll move backwards into Cancer, and then it'll move forward back towards Leo again. Woohoo! So the reason why it's retrograde is because basically by the way the planets are aligned and Earth's placement with the Sun, it looks like Mercury is going backwards from us, and then it starts to progress forward, and that's why it's called a retrograde. For those that have heard the term and wondered, what is that? So Scorpio and Leo, fantastic signs. But with the retrograde going on, which is Mercury is all about your communication, that wonderful throat chakra area. And we get a lot of the other outside influences of electronics going haywire because of the influence of the energies as well. But it's all about the communication. And so when it goes retrograde, the planet alignments, the signs that it's sitting in, will give us indicators as to how it's impacting the communication. So Cancer. Well, let's start off Leo, since we're going backwards a little bit in Leo before we hit the Cancer energy, and then we move through Cancer back into Leo. Leo the lion, okay? We all know that it's a very forward sign, very bold, very expressive. Leo the lion likes to roar. It likes to shine. It's the center of attention. So you have that influence on the communication, right? And so, we all kind of go, okay, let me speak up, but we're putting our foots in our mouths a lot, and we're wondering why. Why are people taking it this way? Well, because of the way it's kind of going backwards, it ends up making that energy cause more miscommunication. And the other people you're communicating with may kind of be like, is that really what you just said? And they're hearing it differently. So it's a lot of patience in how you're talking to others and how you're wanting to express yourself. It's also with the retrograde, as Heather was saying, it is a time to reflect, go inward. Reflect and review. That's what retrogrades love for us to do. And the planet alignment can help us indicate what kind of areas in our life or events or interactions in the past that we may want to reflect on and do a little review and insight for ourselves. It's a lot of internal work of how we're communicating. And so as we're moving from Leo into that Cancer energy, Cancer is the mother love. It is the sign that's very nurturing. It's very expressive in more of the mother aspect, meaning that it's not as aggressive and harsh as Leo. So you'll end up finding your words are a little bit more coming out in you're wanting to nurture people through your communication. But there again, the crab. The crab does not come direct head on. That's the Scorpio energy. Crabs do the side to side. Watch them walk. Yeah. So, you have to think about when you're in this time period of a Mercury retrograde and you're trying to do this, whether you're doing internal review and reflect with yourself, you need to think about how you're communicating that within as well, because the crab wants to dance around side to side to get to its inner point or towards its goal. So that energy is kind of doing that little sideways walk over here, and I'll approach it from this other side over here, rather than doing the very direct head-on that Leo energy is
in like
known for.
So in like a lion, out like a crab. Or in like a crab, out like a lion.
Yep. Exactly.
A side hit with a roar.
That is exactly. That's actually a perfect analogy, because you're coming in. We're in like a lion, and then all of a sudden we're sidestepping, and we're like, oh, maybe you're not using your voice or your communication as effectively as you would be if you were the lion in a tame version,
Right.
All right, go on. Sorry, I just had to interject that in there because it was funny.
Oh, no. It's perfectly fine. I love it. And so one of the other aspects for people to look at, whenever you're dealing with these different types of planetary alignments, look at your own chart in detail. Ask your sun sign. There's lots of websites you can do it for free, like astro.com. But, like for me, I was born during a Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde, the energy of it doesn't work the same for me as it does for most people. When you're born during a retrograde, it usually means like the things that everybody else is like, don't sign a contract, don't get in a relationship, try to hold off on some of these major decisions. Well, if you're born during
don't
Mercury
live life.
retrograde, it's actually a really good time for you to be making those decisions if that retrograde energy is in alignment in your birth chart at the time. So, it doesn't impact everybody with the same flow. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. And another good tip is look at where these planets in particular, the Cancer and Leo, and also look at your Mercury alignment in your own personal chart, because it's going to help guide you in how your personal identity, how your star chart alignment is working with these other planets. Everybody has all kinds of mixes in different houses, different planet alignments and things like that. So it's really good to look at those details. And you can end up seeing, okay, if you're, for instance, say your Mercury on your own birth chart is aligned in Scorpio. Scorpio is very much the sign of going to the underworld, looking through things into the depths and darkness of life, of people, of situations. So if your Scorpio is in Mercury in your birth chart, and you've got Mercury retrograde in Leo and Cancer, Scorpio is really positive with Cancer energy. They're very closely aligned. But with Leo, they're very challenging. And so your own alignment can influence how the retrograde energy and its alignment is working with you or feels like you're trudging through mud.
Wow.
I know it sounds complicated, but when you really start kind of looking at those pieces, you can see how you end up feeling like, oh, my God, this week I can't seem to get my point across. You know, my boss is misinterpreting everything I'm saying. What is going on? And yet, you know, if you look and you're like, oh, my goodness, okay, so my sign in Mercury is like in complete opposition with the planets that it's sitting in. You can give yourself a break, you know, give yourself that breath, take a moment, and then look again about how you're trying to communicate to others. And maybe instead you need to start with how you're communicating with yourself and then work that energy into how you're bringing it to other people. You know?
Yeah, that's good advice, man. Thinking about how you communicate with yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've already been feeling the effects of it and noticing it with people this week. On top of all the other energies out there, communication really is getting affected. People are taking things the wrong way. Retrograde's always a good time for my computers usually to go down, if they're going to go down. I've lost a lot of phones, during this time, so I actually got to the point where I was asking my guides if something's going to blow up, could it be something cheap, you know, instead of the expensive items all the time. But
yeah.
I've you know, we kind of wonder why the technology is forms of communication.
Exactly. And we're electromagnetic beings, and as well as the universe, you know, and the cosmos and in the astrological system, we're all electromagnetic. Right. You know, and if you're finding that you're having them little fizzles and sizzles going on, whether it's through talking in person, self-talk, computer, these things, that's a good time to do stuff that works on the throat chakra. Mm-hmm.
Because then you can help that energy to gain a stability, and hopefully that's going to help kind of smooth it out a little bit when you're trying to communicate.
Well, that's where I found that I have most of my issues anyway, is with the throat chakra, because of communication. And I was always the quiet child growing up, and the good one, you know, the one that never talked back or said anything or used my voice. So now I find myself during these times of not wanting to come across the wrong way, trying to be careful. But I'm finding my voice. It's just one of those things where I want to use my voice in the most healing and effective way possible. And that's, you know, lately it's been working really well for me.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. So when I communicate with people, I basically speak the truth from my heart. I don't go from my head, because that doesn't get me anywhere. 99% of arguments come from miscommunication. And I feel that if you communicate from the heart and you don't have any secret contracts with anybody and you just say it like it is, there's no reason for anybody to misconstrue how you're feeling or what your thoughts are or what you expect. And I don't hold that expectation on anybody else either. So that's been a big lesson for me. So during this time, I feel like I'm pretty strong during this retrograde, because I've learned so well to use my throat chakra in the most healing possible way for myself first, and then for others second.
Well, that's a really good way to do it. I'm usually just the opposite. If I know that it sounded like I'm speaking a foreign language to somebody else when I'm trying to get something across, I just back off and, if it's a discussion about anything, just let them be right and let it go on. But
well, I say this a lot.
Go ahead.
I say this a lot on air. I talk about secret contracts, so our listeners have probably heard it before. But I am a firm believer in no secret contracts, meaning if you're in a relationship with somebody or living with people, you can't expect people to do things that you expect them to do without telling them what you're expecting or what your hopes are or what you like or what you dislike. You can't get upset with them if you're holding a secret contract. Like, you should have put the dishes away last night. I'm going to be mad at you, even though I'm not going to tell you why. Like that. You just say, you know what, it would be great if you could put the dishes away at night because I like a clean kitchen in the morning when I get my first cup of coffee. And that's, it's not confrontational. And it's like, I just will be, and I kind of do it in a fun way, a fun, loving way. Like, don't be a dumbass and put your dishes away. That's my fun, loving way. And I do it with a smile and a little giggle, and it seems to go over fine. But that has been something that changed my life drastically, is to everybody that I love and everybody that I live with, no secret contracts. If you want something, just let me know. Put it out there. So, as an example, my husband used to bring me coffee every morning. And then for a few days, he didn't bring me a coffee. And instead of getting pissed and pouting and, being sulky about it, I said, you haven't brought me coffee in a few days. What's up? You got major poop in the morning or something? What's going on? So I was like, it'd be great if you could start bringing me coffee again, because to me, that's how you say I love you before you go off to work. And ever since then, he brought me coffee every morning. And there was no arguing. There was no, passive-aggressive behavior. And we did that with each other, and that changed my life.
I could see where that would in a big way.
Yeah, and with my family, too. Like my sister, we're very open with each other, and we say, look, if you get pissed off about something and you haven't told me ahead of time that pisses you off, or if you didn't tell me afterwards, look, this is what happened, and you get really pouty about it, that's on you. So it takes a lot of weight off you, and it prevents a lot of miscommunication. So that's
and then
my
the other
advice
person,
for this retrograde.
The other person knows you're always going to come from a truthful spot too, which makes it easier.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very important. Very important in how you convey what your needs or desires are, and especially during a retrograde period.
Right. Because that's the thing. It's so
sometimes
easy
you really have to kind of go, do I really need to say this? Is this helpful or is this hurtful?
Exactly.
And if the words in your mind at the moment register hurtful, reevaluate how you're wanting to express it, because if in your own heart it feels hurtful, before you've even put the words out there,
right,
that's when you need to stop and pay attention, and then change the way that you word it, change the way you present it, because your receiver is going to receive the feelings that you put behind the words.
Right. It's not the words, it's the feelings.
Well, it's the energy you send out. That was one of the things I learned the hard way. I could walk in a room, and if I was in a bad mood, automatically everything I said and did would be, a disaster for me in one way or the other because of the way it was coming across. But
and that's no fun because you don't mean it. It's just that you're, it's not. It's like shooting from the hip.
Right.
Sometimes you don't mean it to be hurtful. Sometimes you do mean to be hurtful. I've meant to be hurtful before. I ain't gonna lie. We've all been there.
Yeah, we have all been there.
You mess with the power and the lights go out.
Yeah, none of us are perfect.
Yes.
But you do have to sweep up your mess.
And that's one of the things and I think that's one of the things that people forget is that all of our emotions are important. And it's good that we feel them and find ways to express them and give them their voice. When we have a retrograde going on, since this is so focused on our communication, it's a time that we should really be paying attention to ourselves in how we're communicating. Because you might be feeling super angry in one moment and just start having verbal diarrhea at somebody, and it was never about them. They just happened to be the person that walked in the room and said, hey, where's the coffee? And you're just like, coffee.
Yeah.
This is one of those time periods that we really got to stop for a minute and kind of go, okay, yeah, it's got nothing to do with what I'm feeling. My feelings are over here about this other situation, and I need to think before I respond because I know I'm in a heightened sense at that time. I have these other emotions that are taking the front seat, and I don't want to dispel them or just push them aside. They need to have their moment. But I also need to be aware in how I'm responding and communicating it and not just shredding somebody that asked me where's their cup of coffee, and yet I'm angry and upset about something that has nothing to do with it, and you've just caused that person to, turn and run out the door. And they're like, yeah, I'll see you in a week, man. I won't be calling. Yeah. I'll be checking in on you,
And it's a ripple effect, and then they go out and yell at somebody else,
Yep. Just pass it on.
It kind of goes down the line.
Yes, it does. It does, because they are going to take it out to somebody else.
Yeah.
You just hit them with this wall of it, and they sucked it in whether they realized it or not.
Right. God, I remember when I was younger and I hadn't dealt with a lot of trauma in my life, and boy, that I used to go off on, whatever boyfriend I had at the time. God bless their souls. I mean, these poor guys dealt with somebody who was dealing with a lot of shit. And I would get mad and have no idea why I was mad. And I was mad at it was because I was triggered. So we got to be careful about that because things are going to trigger you, and you got to learn to put your aggression in the right direction. I was definitely pointing it in the wrong direction. That was a hard lesson to learn.
Well, it's hard when it's a couple situation because they're the one that you're most emotionally safe with, that you can communicate with or get mad at. At least that's how I used to get told after I get my butt chewed out anyway. But and then
it still wasn't fair to. I mean, they had no. See, if I knew what was wrong with me, it probably would have made things easier. But I mean, they didn't know what was wrong. They're like, "What the fuck did I do?" And I'm like, you did this and you did that. And I'm just making things up after a while. I'm like, I got no clue what you did, but I got to come up with something.
I used to have one young lady that was on Donahue or Oprah. When I came home from work, I had that problem all of a sudden, and I learned to start stepping into somebody else's shoes before I say anything, just because I have to look at their picture and what they've gone through for the day or where they're at. And if you can step into their shoes and see it from their eyes before you respond, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
But yeah. Makes for some interesting lessons, though.
That's the kind of thing we're going to be dealing with over the next few weeks. Is checking yourself. Is this really part of the problem, or am I dealing with the shadow part of myself and putting it on somebody else because I don't know where else for it to go?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that was when I started to deal with the fact that I had to work on my shadow self because there were going to be no more secret contracts. So then I had to really look at, oh, shit, I'm responsible for my own feelings now. I kind of dug myself into a hole there, but it was a good hole,
Yeah.
It's not easy to face that part of yourself.
It's not at all. It's such a deep dive into the self and where that core is sitting. Because like you, I had a very explosive temper in my...
Oh, hell yeah.
And I remember, I remember a good one when I was... I was about 22, and my first husband and I were just living together, and we were sharing a house with his father and his girlfriend, and she and I got along fantastic. She was like 20 years older than me, but we had the same birth date, so we got along really, really well, but with the dad, I didn't. And I remember one day he said something, and I just flipped. I took this poor man down to, like, a little stump. But what would happen when my temper would explode is that the world disappeared. My vision would go. It would be completely black in front of me. And it would get really scary because it's kind of like, oh, my God, I'm this angry. It's like my vision went away. I'm blind. What's going on? Talk about being blinded by anger. I literally was.
Wow.
Yeah, and I used to go, oh, that's just the Irish temper. That's just the Irish temper, But it would scare me because when I would finally come out of it, half the time I wouldn't even remember what I said to the poor person, I would just rip them from one end down to where they were nothing, and I'd come out of it, and I would be like, yeah, I told you off, but I really don't remember what I said.
Right.
And being blinded, And then afterwards you're like, oh, well, maybe that wasn't right, But I ended up having to dig into myself. And it wasn't for years. I mean, I lived with that till, my mid-30s, 40s, when I really started to work on self-healing, that I was finally able to go, you know what, it's not just the Irish temper. That was my excuse term. I need to look at where it's rooted from. And, as you dive into there, you can end up finding it. And for me, the root was that any time I was disciplined as a child, I was not allowed to speak. I had to keep eye contact with my father the entire time he was talking, and the world would fade and disappear and blur, because you're like not blinking, you're just staring, and yes, sir, and so my voice was very much gone. And I didn't understand how to allow my anger to get its own expression and way of voice. so it had built up into my adulthood to where I had this explosive temper that would literally scare people, and it scared me too.
Yeah.
Getting to that root helps you, and when you do that, Mercury retrograde, when the communication is all wonky, you become so consciously aware of it that you are doing that heart check. Heart check. Do I need to, do I say this, or wait a minute? Heart, what do you got? This is not
in
nice.
my best interest?
Regroup.
Or is this going to keep me from getting coffee in the morning?
That's when you bring in a mediator for negotiations.
Right. Well, it's funny because I had the same temper when I was younger, in my 20s. And I remember, man, I used to get mad. And then I would get so mad, I would, like, throw a chair or something. I had to just, like, physically do something. But that's how I was raised. My father had a temper, and he used to throw things all, he's back in the 70s and 80s, those glass coffee tables were huge. We went through like 10 of those. But then my husband said to me, look, this isn't normal. Normal people don't do that. So I just had to check myself, and I was like, wait, is it really that big of a deal that I had to throw a chair across the room? No. And it made me really think about how I was processing things. And the way I was processing things was really unhealthy. So, I mean, it took a long time to get past all of that, but you can. You can. You can be like, wait, this isn't serving me. This is causing me more problems.
Yeah.
And then checking with the heart, before you respond. And even my kids now, when my husband tells them that I used to throw things, they're like, what? No way. They couldn't believe it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I had a pretty fiery temper. So when my kids were younger and they'd throw a temper, my husband would say, see, that's you.
I'm the same way. Yeah. If my eyes go black, I tell people when I meet them, if my eyes go black, you better turn and run, because that means I'm beyond the point of being calm. Because I was raised in basically the same way. It was yes or no, sir, with my dad. And he would literally just rip us up and then set us in a chair right across from him. And then he'd sit there and, make the eye contact like you were saying, Shannon. But after a certain amount of time, then he tried to be your best friend, which would make me even madder, Yeah. But, I learned a lot. I did a lot of bar fighting when I was in my 20s. And the only way I used to ever be able to get my energy out whenever I would get in trouble is I would bury myself into work and work as hard and as fast as I could. And so I used to get a lot of work done when he'd get me pissed off. So he didn't mind that one bit. But,
Yeah, I turned that into housework. So whenever my husband saw me cleaning like crazy, he'd be like, oh, what are you upset about? So I'm like, why do you ask? Just let me clean the house. I mean, hey. But you gotta channel it somewhere.
I'm so guilty of that.
Right? Because you gotta do something. It's like getting that physical feeling out of your body, that like pent up energy, and putting it into words or something like that just doesn't work. Doesn't work in my best interest, that's for sure.
Yeah. I use music a lot for it as well. And it's become like a family joke because, my parents live in an apartment behind my house that we built for them, and my girls at home, everybody knew. It was like, if you hear the stereo blaring out of the house, even though the windows are closed, Mom is upset about something and trying to work it out. It's like there's either cleaning happening or you're going to find her dancing in the living room. One of those two, and you just let her be. and tread carefully. And then when it turns off, go find out what was going on. Because by the time I would turn it off, I felt good. I had processed it. I let it go. I'm out of my head, you know. But and for me, it's rock and roll. You know, I'm having Scorpions and Collective Soul, and you know, Shinedown is blaring out of my house. I'm just like scrubbing the walls and washing the floors, and everything looks fantastic in the house. And everybody else is like, "Do we go in? Is it safe?
Stay out of her way." Yeah. And that's
but I also
outlet.
use it to communicate. Do you get messages when you do it as well?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely, because it's a form of meditation.
Yes, it is.
When you think about it.
Well, that's where when I was growing up, since I couldn't express myself, you know, I'd never backtalked to my dad. I learned very early on. The first time he and I ever got in a good hoorah was when I was 19 years old. And when I started unleashing on him, it was a 2-hour event. And then when I got done, he said, "I'm proud of you. You finally stood up to me." You know, but I wasn't allowed to express myself as a kid or even as a teenager because immediately it would be backhand time. So,
yeah.
But that's the thing with me, any type of energy like that, I have to, well, before I got my back so injured, I used to just go out and burn the energy either hiking or burn the energy working, you know, because that was the only way to get out. But music, that was my only release for emotions, too. That's the only way I could feel any emotions. So I would take long walks with a headset or Walkman back then and go that way. So.
Yeah, music is such a good helper to turn to.
Oh, yeah.
To help you get through it, get through your thoughts, and find yourself back at a peaceful place. I mean, for me, when I really dug into my issue with communication, it went all the way back to freaking 1979 when I was 11. I was turning 12 that year, but it was 11, and we went to Saudi Arabia. I had to spend 3 months there. And two of my older sisters went with us. My dad was working there on King Khalid's military city at the time. And there was a huge blowout that happened because we had a new stepmother, we had new step-siblings, and this was the trip of, everybody gets to know each other, so let's go to the Middle East.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. My sisters said something. Stepsister brought it back home. Huge explosion. You know, my dad's going off on my sisters and everything. And here I am, the youngest, and I'm, like, stuck in this. But I remember my dad sitting me on his lap crying at the end of it. And he was telling me all kinds of stuff, and I couldn't speak. So not only had I already learned from having lectures when I did something wrong, that I was not to rebut my father, I was to listen and obey and keep that eye contact and say what I was supposed to say. And here I am in this other situation where he's completely someone I didn't know and looking for forgiveness and trying to talk these things through with me. And here I am, just a little girl, just like, I want nothing to do with you right now. I want to get on a plane and go home. And we still had another month to be there. You know, it was pretty much, you better stay in line or I'm going to sell you off. We were all like, okay, we're good girls. I want to go home. You know? Yeah. He had offers, believe me. He would have had a lot of cash.
Oh, I'm sure.
For us girls. But, you know, that threat of, you know, you may never even see your country again, okay? So you better be straight. We were just like, ugh. frozen.
Yeah. That's pretty
and
heavy.
It continues. Yeah, and you end up putting yourself in this bottle, this stranglehold, where your communication has to be, you're afraid to speak because of what it might create, what it might trigger.
Yep.
And as a child, you have no idea about this. You just know you're scared to death. You don't want to talk. You're afraid to interact and respond. And I'm sure, there's not too many that had to go to Saudi Arabia when they were a child. I'm sure many of our listeners and you guys can relate to that childhood when your communication gets stripped down, how much we carry that into our adulthood. And we'll either be very angry with others because now we're like, I'm an adult. I can say what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're
So
the
true.
same person that's keeping it bottled up. And so you really have a difficult time. It'll give you anxiety when you're having to communicate your needs, your wants, your desires. So, if any of our listeners out there have had similar to Kevin and Heather and myself, we would all tell you, take the time, discover you, look inside, and heal that child. Because that child is just waiting for the door to be opened again so that they can say what they've been holding in so long. And it'll help you communicate better with yourself and then with others. And when you have a Mercury retrograde coming in like this one is, with that roaring lion, you're going to be able to handle that energy and not feel like you're losing yourself every time you try to speak.
That's right. And it's all about healing in Mercury retrograde. Not about avoiding, it's about healing.
Yes. 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 So there's lots of things to do when these periods of time come up for us every year. We get 3 or 4 of them a year. But it's such a valuable time to really help us heal. And I know some people don't think Mercury retrogrades are great for that, but I do. I feel like it's one of the best times that you can work on your own self-healing because it really makes you take a look at how you're talking to yourself and how you're talking to others and what is your dialogue inside. We are so hard on ourselves. We're so judgmental of ourselves.
Right.
That it really is a time to kind of stop and go, why am I hearing, my father's words in my head? Those aren't mine. I'm not defined by those anymore, That's not me.
Yeah.
This is me.
And each retrograde will bring up a different aspect of our shadow self. So it's not like you're going to go through a Mercury retrograde and all of a sudden, that's what you're getting to know what each Mercury retrograde is about, and then recognizing that shadow part of yourself is how you can heal the best.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it's so helpful, because when I started reading up on what these retrogrades were about and realized that they were all a little bit different and they all showed a little bit different side of me, that I could really focus on that side of me during those periods of time. What a gift that is, to be awakened to what the shadow side of us is and what we can do about it. So it's just really helped me grow quite a bit.
I wish I would have known that information about 30 years ago. The groups I worked with when I first started out on my path, Mercury retrograde meant that everything was going to go haywire, and it was duck and cover time,
Right.
And there was nothing about doing any internal work at all. So that was quite a big help to find that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So how long are we going to be in this time period?
Okay, so we're already in the pre-portion. Woohoo! And Mercury retrograde will be from July 7th to July 31st. And then we move into the post-shadow, and that will go until August 15th. Yeah.
August
Should be
15th.
an interesting time.
Yeah.
Okay. So are there times when
the next
it's
one is
stronger?
in Scorpio.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Right at Halloween and everything.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Are there times when it's stronger than others, or is it just pretty much a level playing field throughout the whole month?
It usually peaks right about the midway mark of the dates is when it'll really be its most intense. So, let's see.
So mid-July is going to be like, watch yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's when it's going to be at its most intensive moment, and then, which is, luckily for us, it will be in Cancer at that point. It'll be out of Leo and fully into Cancer, which is good because it is going to bring up a lot of that mother and moon energy. And I think we may even be, let me look at the calendar real quick because I think we might even be having the full moon. Yeah, the 16th is the full moon.
Oh, that should make things real interesting.
Yeah, right at that peak of the retrograde.
Woo!
Yeah, and the full moon.
That makes me happy. I don't.
Yeah, which is a good thing. I mean, if we really think about it, this is a good thing because Cancer is ruled by the moon. And here we're going to have Mercury retrograde sitting right at its peak on Cancer. And the full moon's energy is all about the mother energy, just like Cancer is. So if you have mother issues, you may be dealing with some of that stuff at that point. But it's also got the very nurturing side of the mother energy, you know. So there'll be a lot more of tenderness and self-care, mothering ourselves, really.
That's exactly what I need.
Will be high. Yeah. So it's as scary as it kind of looks to some people when they look at it all. We couldn't have asked for it to really be in a better position.
I agree. I think it's really going to be great for healing. It just, to me, it feels more of like a nurturing retrograde than the other ones have.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's an intuitive thing or if that has to do with the astrological signs, but it just feels like a time where people are just going, what is it that I need right now to heal? What is it that I need to grow? What am I doing that's not making me happy? And I really feel like people are taking a look at that right now. And that's, I feel like this is a great time to nurture and love yourself and to look at your shadow aspect and, realize how much, what part of that side of you has protected you but no longer serving you, and you can let go of it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it comes out in the way we communicate. And to me, I feel like going into the Scorpio, you said in October, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. So right now is the time to, straighten your shit out. before we get to Scorpio. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is going to be I think it's going to be the smoothest time to do that, because I don't think October is going to be necessarily as smooth.
Nope.
Well,
so
you know how it goes.
Check yourself, people. Check yourself.
You know how it goes with the lessons. The first time it comes to you and it's fairly easy, but if you don't get it the first time, the second time comes a little bit harder your way, and then after that it'll come even harder. So it's a good time to get straightened out now.
That's what I say about the universe. If the universe is trying to get you to change something and you don't listen, they're going to burn your house down.
Yeah, they will.
That's all I'm saying. You know, I'm not speaking from experience or anything, but
no, I know.
I'm telling you. Take it from me. Don't let the universe burn your house down.
Yes.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, how do you think would be the best way to deal with people that aren't awake, you know, the people you run into every day, since they have no clue what Mercury Retrograde is or is going on? What would be the best way to approach them?
Oh, I think that is the best way to look at your shadow side. I think that is the best way, because our shadow side most of the time has expectations and wants to change people.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't take that on. You know, people are going to say stuff, people are going to do stuff, and we don't have any control over that, and that has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with them.
Use it as a mirror effect to look inside yourself.
Use it as a mirror. How you react to that person is how you see yourself. It's a shadow side of yourself. Is how you react to somebody else. Because if somebody else triggers you, it's because you see a part of them that you fear, because it's a part of you. And it's something that needs to heal.
I agree with that.
I agree.
So that, you know, it took me a long time to learn that. So I'd be like, what the hell did you just say? Really? Come again? But now I'm like, yeah, okay. I'm sorry you feel that way. And that's it. Because it's not a reflection on us. And that takes a lot of growth and self-discipline. It's not easy to get there. But you can get there. Mm-hmm. We can all get there. It's just a matter of being willing to take your own inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the time when that's going to show. People are going to show that shadow side. But you can't, you can respond to them, but you can't respond to them in a negative way unless you have a shadow side of yourself that you see.
Yeah, because all you're doing is bouncing back the negative energy, and it'll bounce back and forth between the two people until it gets huge. So.
Yeah,
right.
and we're all one. You know, everything's happening simultaneously, and we get charged by things people say, and when somebody says something and you get really pissed off about it and you want to throw a chair, you got to say, why did that make me want to throw a chair? What was it about that situation that triggered something in me? Because it wasn't what they said. Because what they said had not, you know, they may have said something to me, negative about me or to me, but it really wasn't about me. But what is it that was triggered in me that made me have such a strong reaction? And that's how I recognized a lot of trauma that I had in my childhood.
That makes total sense.
The negative things that come out in you know, when if you're, you know, think about this. If you're going on Facebook and you're posting a negative status, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. This day went to shit, or somebody said this. What an effing idiot! And check yourself. Think, why did I react that way? Why do I feel like I have to get that out there? There's something inside of you that's being triggered that needs to heal. So it's the same
I was
thing.
just thinking,
we do.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say there's probably a lot of listeners out there that have to deal with people that aren't aware. That's why I thought I'd bring that up, so they can have a perception to look at it from.
Well, that's kind of to look at it as in the astrological shift we're in. But a lot of people, if they're seeing dumb stuff, you can't be like, dude, we're in Mercury Retrograde in Cancer. That's because that's why you're saying that.
Look at you like,
and I didn't do anything wrong, but you said that because we're in Mercury Retrograde.
Mm-hmm.
So, I do that with my sister all the time. She calls it Mercury and Gatorade because she doesn't understand. And so she listens, but she doesn't, she gets it, but she thinks it's funny. I still say it, people that I know won't look at me and think, oh my God, she's lost a few marbles. But, it is. It's a good educational thing for people who are open to it. But those who aren't, it's a way to check yourself. So you can help check other people if they're open to it and say, look, we're in this really tough time. People believe that full moons make people crazy. Why wouldn't they believe a Mercury retrograde messes with us? That's what I don't understand. So if I brought up a Mercury retrograde and they're like, what is that? And I'm like, well, you know how the full moon makes people kind of, you don't sleep well, blah, blah, blah. They're like, yeah. I said, well, Mercury retrograde is different. It has to do with what astrological sign it's in, which planet is going backwards, and what part of our emotional system it messes with. So that's how I explain it.
That's a good way to explain it.
Yeah, that's about all I know about Mercury retrograde, but that's all you can do.
Yeah, and I'd say also when you're talking with other people that are not awake at all, completely closed doors, and they're saying something, and you haven't triggered them, or it hasn't really triggered a point within yourself, but you're hearing this blow at you of maybe a situation they've had or a conversation that went bad or something like that. For me, I use laughter. I start hitting them with a few ways of, oh my goodness, isn't that silly? And getting them to begin to laugh at the situation, because they're not going to understand how the energy is hitting them. But as soon as you can get them to start to laugh at what had them so caught up in a chaos entanglement within themselves, they'll start to breathe a little bit, and then you can hand them some pieces of advice, of, hey, maybe, you know what, I know this is really bothering you. Maybe today would be a good day for you to take your dog over to the dog park and get some fresh air for a little bit and let it just clear your head. We all know hugging trees, getting in the grass, all of this stuff grounds us. It's so good for us. It's great for our energy. It helps us release. They don't get it, but you give it to them in a way that makes sense to them that, oh, yeah, my dog would really love that. Or, had you thought about going for a drive and maybe letting yourself just kind of process that conversation or that interaction and let it kind of, so you can breathe better, and it'll probably make more sense to you later if you do that. And then they're like, oh, God, yeah, drive sounds good. You've just given them a tool to use without giving them the woo-woo side, because they're not open
Mm-hmm.
to the woo-woo side. But now you've just handed them something, a gift. You handed them a way to be able to process it. And then they'll be able to come back and communicate their feelings about what happened versus being in the heat of the chaos of it.
That's great advice. Great advice. You know, but it's funny because for a long time, I would talk to my sister about this spiritual stuff, and you know, I'm the hippie of the family, and so we always use humor to get through our differences. And this past year, she started to use more spiritual humor with me. And the last argument we had, and we weren't speaking for a little while, she sent me a meme that said, and I posted it on my Common Ground Cafe site. It said, "Your heart chakra needs more cowbell." And just like that, our fight was over. You know, because you got to do that. My father was, he was all, you know, not into that kind of stuff at all. And he used to have, South Park as his GPS voice. And I don't know if I should say this on air, but there was one saying where he's like, Cartman's like, "Take a left up ahead, you tree-hugging hippie asshole," or something like that. And they'd all look at me because I was the tree-hugging hippie. But, yeah, you know, not everybody understands that. And they think of it as in a negative connotation, but just, you know, like my sister using, you know, your heart chakra needs more cowbell. That's pretty funny. But it's true. You know? So you can say things like that. I just think that was the best advice. To say, go to the park, go for a walk, go find a leaf in the shape of a heart.
Yeah. I write. That's one of my go-tos. My poor husband. Over the years, in the beginning, if I got upset and angry with him, and I still couldn't really communicate it, I would write. I'd write letters. I'd write all this stuff out, and I'd leave it for him. And one time we'd been together for like 10 years already, and he was like, "Would you quit writing me these letters? Just sit down and talk to me." But I was really upset, and it's the best way I could get it out. And he's like, "Yeah, baby, you just need to talk to me a little bit. It's fine." And I was like, but I was still in my healing work and really trying to, you know, heal the child within who had such a struggle with it. So that was, and I still do it to this day. He doesn't get the letters anymore. I mean, I rarely get angry with him anyway, but I'll get angry at situations, or I'll get upset, or I'm having trouble trying to articulate what I'm really wanting to say.
But what a great example of growth. That's a great example of growth pattern. So good. You know, my cousin Ben, who listens to our show all the time, I'm going to try to get him in as a guest pretty soon. He just said, we really don't deal with other people directly. We deal with our perceptions of other people, which makes it super easy to get our buttons pressed because we naturally see reflections of ourselves in that perception. It's all about healing that perception. Yeah. Spot on, Ben. Spot on.
I agree. Very good.
Yeah. I had done a video last year on my public page about truth. And Spirit sat in on the session and was giving me the stuff to say and everything. And they were like, look, you need to be kind about truth because everyone's truth is the truth to them because it's the perception of the kaleidoscope they're looking through that creates their truth. So every person's truth is individualized based on the perception and the kaleidoscope they're looking through at life. And you just stop for a minute I had such like an aha moment doing that session, because I was just kind of like, wow, that's so true. There's truth that can stand by itself. It has no opinion and no context. It stands alone. But then everybody's individual perception and understanding of that truth is based on the kaleidoscope they're looking through. And that's
exactly
where it gets so foggy. And so, here we are in a Mercury retrograde that's all about the communication and the reviewing and reflecting within. And there again, we're looking through the kaleidoscope of our lives, all the experiences that have helped us create how we're viewing and interpreting, perceiving. Sometimes you have to take the kaleidoscope and smack it a few times. Go,
not on
wait.
somebody else, right?
This is not quite jiving here, So it's one of those things
that's exactly what I was saying about, I said 90%, but really 99.9% of all arguments are because of that kaleidoscope.
Yeah.
Miscommunication.
Laura's got a question for us, too.
Oh, cool.
From the chat room. Yeah. She says, but. Sometimes people really do suck bad, and it's not a reflection. What do you guys think about those people?
Okay, no. You know what? And I'm so glad, Laura, that you brought that up, because it is so true. But
yes.
My point is that people do suck bad, but it's not because they suck. It's because their kaleidoscope is so muddy because of their life circumstances that they don't see past that. So it's the way we react to them in our not all loving way. We don't have to engage with them. We don't have to agree with them, but it's how we react to them. If we have to give it back in a sassy way, or if we have to, throw something, or just be, in a bad mood for the rest of the day, we have to think, what is it inside ourselves that makes us, feel like this? Because people, that's why we need the duality. We need to see that people can really suck and people can be like saints, because it helps us gauge ourselves. And how do we react to that spectrum? And what do we relate to the most? So, we don't have to think everybody's wonderful, but it's how we react and how we feel on the inside. And it's our perception of the people, our perception of, are they good or bad? And that to me is what I am fighting through, is my perception of what's good and bad. So I'm in my place right now. I don't see anything as good or bad. I see it as what I engage with and what I don't. It's a choice.
Yes.
So the people that I perceive as not in vibrational alignment with myself, I don't engage with. And that, I don't call it bad. It is, to me, yes, verbally, if I were to put words to it, it's bad. It sucks. It sucks to have people be such assholes. But I'm getting to the point, and I'm trying to get further to that point, to where I don't view people as good or bad. I view people as, oh my gosh, they must have had such a horrible life to feel that bad about themselves, to project that onto society, or to treat people so inhumanely. I feel so sorry for them. And then walk away.
Yes. It is a time for compassion.
Yeah.
It is.
I just want to know you guys' take on that, too.
Yeah. There's a group of spirits that I trans-channel for the book material that I'm trying to finish up. But one of the things that they talked about was that, remember, no one is born bad. It is created through the experiences, the things that impact them, the situations that they've been in, the people, the way they've treated them. Everybody's going to be an adversary for someone. And we need to remember that some of the people that really come off as being, we see them and we're just like, oh my God, that's a really bad person. I don't want to be around. Something helped create that personality in that person. And that person needs more compassion than probably anybody else you've run into, because they weren't born that way. Life brought those choices and things into their lives that helped create that.
And sometimes people like that
just... Yeah, they're the actor on the stage. You know, every movie has a villain. Did the villain start out as a villain? Not usually. Usually they started out as a good guy. Things happened along the way, and they became the bad guy, the villain in the movie. Same thing in life. It can be bad childhood. It can be events in their teenage years, perhaps maybe not being accepted, perhaps always being judged, abuse, verbal, sexual, emotional, physical.
Mm-hmm.
All of these attributes created that person to be bad. And the unacceptance that they've received from everyone around them that keeps them in that state. It doesn't mean you have to go and love on them. Being compassionate doesn't mean you have to accept their behavior. Doesn't mean you have to, be having coffee with them every morning. No.
Right.
But if you can acknowledge it in yourself that this is a person that is acting out of hurt and pain that came from somewhere, you can respond more compassionately, even by saying, no, I'm not going to interact with you. You can still do it with the energy and the intent of compassion and leave it with that person.
Exactly.
Well, that's where I look at, I try to see people on their soul level for who they are, and remember always that there's a soul in that body that isn't evil, that is just playing the role, and where they're at in their path or their life. And, a lot of times I'll let people unload on me, and I just sit there and go, well, that's where their lesson is at right now, because everybody has a mask they're wearing. And there's a kind, compassionate soul in everyone, Sometimes it's really hard to find it, but, it's there.
It's there.
And sometimes a lot of people just need somebody to vent out to, where I've seen. And once they get that out, you can see their energy just shift because they finally had somebody that actually sat there and listened to, even if it's partially gibberish when they're going, And I try not to take it personal when I run into somebody like that. So I just, block myself from it, and just let it go. And it actually has helped a lot of people that way. So.
Yeah, because it really changes their energy when they finally have someone that allows them to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Then it's like you just diffused the bomb.
But it doesn't mean you have to stay in their space for a long period of time either, If they're that bad of a person, and you have to deal with them just on short, brief parts, but recognize where they're at in their lessons, in their growth. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've all been there when people have looked at us and been like, what an asshole. And you don't think you're being an asshole. You really don't. But it's the way we're looking through our kaleidoscope. And we're thinking, this is just what it's basically the way you're acting, what you're saying is what you've learned, what you know. But you don't realize, I didn't realize back then how volatile I was and how I did become this raging lunatic for no reason. And there really wasn't any reason, But I think what helped me was the way that my husband responded to me at the time. It was calm, collective, and he'd sit there and wait till I was done and be like, "You feel better?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, why don't you feel better?" "I don't know, I'm still mad." "So throwing that chair didn't make you feel better?" "No." "So why are you so upset still?" "I don't know." So it was the calm reaction made me think about that and be like, why are you so calm? It would make me even more mad. But it was the way he reacted to me that helped me heal. And if you think about that, and you think about how we respond to people who we can't stand because of their behavior, what if we reacted differently? What if we reacted the complete opposite? That can be very healing for them. But for us, we don't get triggered. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So it's one of those things where, it was he didn't understand it, but he wasn't going to feed into it. And that's what we do. We feed into each other when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We can either choose to contribute to it or choose not to.
I have a friend that's that way. I've known him for 30 years, and nobody else seems to want to be around him because he's always so angry or so vocal. But I actually found out he was taking his blood pressure, and when he would vent something out or he would get something out of the system, his blood pressure would actually go down every time. So I just look at, well, it's good for his health. I'll go over and visit him. And there's no telling what he's going to say today, but, you don't take it personal. You just let him go. And, it helps them because they've got actually somebody that, like you said, is paying attention to them. That is allowing them to express everything that they want to say. So.
Well, my cousin Ben said something really poignant here, too. He said, sure, the big hurdle of a lot of this is putting across the point that judging and anger is just going to make stuff worse. But that concept of taking ownership of the situation in order to shift perception into something more favorable tramples on the toes of that ego need to feel right and vindicated. Hence the sidestepping of the crab, which kind of ties all this back together. And that's so true.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. For example, my stepdad, he was in Nam. He had abuse in his childhood. When he met my mom, I was already married and living in California, and he had severe PTSD. He was like one of the most angry men I have ever met in my life. Everything could trigger him. And my mom is like, she's a total Cancer. She's such the moon child. She's just so mellow, and she's very spiritual, and she's just very calm and mellow. And he would have these explosions, and she would just be like, you feel better? And he'd be like, no, I don't feel better. And she's like, okay. Well, when you're ready, we'll talk about it, and she'd give him his time. This man had so much anger built up in him, so much trauma. He had the widowmaker heart attack at the age of 54. He was completely physically fit, not overweight, no other health issues. And the only reason why he survived it was because my husband was with him when it started. So he actually got to the hospital while he was in the middle of the heart attack. When he came home from the hospital, my mom looked at him and she said, "Now are you ready to deal with your anger? Because that's what created your heart attack. You've been so angry at the world, at your mother, at America, at the war, at the people you lost. Are you ready to finally start letting it go? Because it almost killed you. You never got an opportunity to deal with it." They had tried therapy. They kept trying all these drugs on him. The drugs wouldn't work. My mom would be like, "Nope, nope, nope. That's all going away. You're going to smoke marijuana, and you're going to take St. John's wort." And that's mother's orders. End of story. Because those were the things that at least helped him be able to relax and cope with life. And we did a lot of talking and sharing and giving him the other aspects and the spiritual aspects of the traumas he went through. And, to this day, he's just the happiest guy. I mean, he's a great grandpa, and he's a fantastic great-grandfather, and that anger is all gone now. But if you'd have met this man 15 years ago, he would have been somebody you would have looked at and went, "Oh, my God, that guy's the biggest asshole, and I want nothing to do with him. He's so angry all the time."
That's the way my friend is.
All it took
and he had the heartache. He had the heart attack at 52. So, but for the same reason, he was a Vietnam vet too. Saw too much.
Yeah. And those people that have a lot of traumas that go on, and we meet them in life, and we're like, "Whoa, stay away." And yet, they're also the ones that are just waiting for someone that can be compassionate enough to help them understand and work through.
Right.
And find who they are again, because they've become defined by their anger. It becomes their identity.
And that's what I preach all the time, is that we are here to help and heal each other and to love unconditionally. And we do have the power to do that through our own healing. And that's a great example, because, we've seen people heal from these unbelievably painful situations they've been through. And I honestly feel like we heal others by telling our own story. And
I agree with you on
that. I've always posted on Facebook. I've been open. My kids hate it. Some of my family hates it. But, my story is quite an incredible story. So I'm starting my blog. I only have 3 posts, but I'm telling my whole shitstorm of a story, because I feel like our story, we should not be ashamed of what we've been through, and what we've been through can heal other people tremendously. And if we were not if we were not shamed by talking about things out in public with our upbringing, I really feel like we would all be able to heal each other. To us, we wouldn't feel alone. We would understand that, there's help, there's support out there. How did other people do it? There's some people out there thinking that they're the only ones that are going through such a hard time, and they feel so alone. And I feel like that's really important.
It is.
That should be another topic.
I had my daughter ask me one time, she was like, "Mom, would you ever, if you had the opportunity to go back in time, would you ever want to take the bad parts of your life out of it?" And I said, "No." And she looked at me like I was crazy. She was like, "Mom, really? You wouldn't change any of it?" Not even some of them really bad spots. And I said, no. Because I can stand
you wouldn't
today
be the healer.
and see.
Yeah.
Exactly. I would not be the healer today that I am if not for every single one of those moments. I wouldn't be doing the work that I do today.
Right.
And
why should we go through life and experience this complete devastation and heartache that we've been through as healers and empaths and whatnot, and not share our story and our success from it and our healing path? You know, that's what energy healers do. They talk about how they heal themselves.
Yeah.
Well, I was told through a channeling back when I was probably like 29, 30, that my life was going to be a story, because I would, the channeling would get typed up and put on the web, and then, everything about my life was being exposed, at least once or twice a week. And they told me, they said, your story is not yours only. It's for everybody out there. Your life is going to be an example to help other people heal. And that's exactly, I feel the same way. That's where, I know that if I can get my story out to people, then they'll see that they're not alone in it, that somebody has been in the trenches like they are, and that there's a way out of it.
I feel like that everybody should start a blog and tell their story. I really do. I feel I would love to hear everybody's story, because it's so fascinating and it's so educational to learn about what people have overcome and what they've done with it. And it's been so taboo for so long, and I want to break that mold and a misconception that, we don't talk about our personal lives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that.
I do the same thing.
I find it's very healing to get to know somebody's story, because, we all have different lives, different paths. We approach things from different directions. And, I might have gone down a road that you haven't, or you might have gone down a road that I haven't. And there is where you find the wisdom,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And think about if these war heroes had told their story, and how people would understand exactly what it was like, how much that would affect everybody in their understanding of PTSD, or how much respect we should have for them and their families for what they've sacrificed, sacrificed their lives and their sanity. That too, I never went through that. I would love to hear a story like that. I'm writing a story about my father in prison. He went to prison for a year, and he wrote my mother 36 letters. And I'm going to be posting all of those, and it talks about what it was like in prison for 18 months. That's the kind of thing that and I've heard somebody say, well, why would somebody want to know that? That's not positive stuff. I'm like, well, because the life isn't always positive. You can't wear rose-colored glasses every day.
Exactly, and you can't hide, the fact that you've been through things. Because, to me, I grew up where everything you didn't talk about family business anywhere else but at home, if you were allowed to talk about it then. So I know what you mean there. Yeah, I mean, it's healing for people to hear each other's story and share them. So.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. And it helps us in this time of the retrograde where people are going to, say things offhand, but we don't know what their personal story is.
Yeah.
So it's like in traffic when I'm riding with somebody and they get road rage. I'm like, you have no idea what kind of day that person has had. What if they just lost somebody they love? think about that. You don't know anybody's personal story.
Well, that's why I always, like I said, I try to step in everybody else's shoes before I even speak, because I try to look at it from their perception. What has brought them to that point, you know? And once you get an idea about that, then you have an idea how to approach it to help them through it.
Right, and that helps us take a look at our own personal perception and how we perceive ourselves. Is how we react to other people.
Yes. Very true. Yeah. And I would have to say that for the healers out there that may just be realizing they have the healing attribute that they're working with, we go through the fires of hell to be like the phoenix that comes out rebirthed. And it's really so that we can bring those stories to the table. Know the experiences firsthand. Know how it feels, the thoughts, the emotions, all the nit and gritty of it. Because then the people that are drawn to us, that's part of why they're coming. Because we know it. We didn't just read about it or hear about it. We felt it. We lived it. We came out the other side of it. I used to tell Ryan that all the time. Dude, healers go through the fires. It's how we kind of become that diamond to be able to help those that are drawn to us or pop in for a moment, because we will be able to sit with them in that fire that they're in and be able to help them find their way through it and beyond. And also be able to show them that we weren't destroyed from it. It didn't destroy us. We are actually stronger for it. We're more beautiful for it. All those internal scars are our stories. And it helps us to be able to bring it to the table for others to be able to know that they can do it too.
Yep, and it's taken that next step on the ladder of our soul growth. You know, we're climbing the ladder of our soul and growing our souls, and each step is exactly that.
Yes. Yes.
It's the steps to enlightenment.
Yes. So true. So true.
And sometimes we do have to go through hell to get to the light. You know, to see the light. To understand that it's part of the lesson. And, you know, with everything that I've been through, the blessings, you know, the blessings were unbelievable if you can see through the smoke and mirrors. The blessings are absolutely tremendously beautiful.
Mhm.
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 Yeah.
It's
tough.
tough.
I wouldn't wish my life on anybody else or ever ask or expect somebody to go through what I did. But I'm glad I did, and I will never regret it because of where it brought me to. And sometimes just giving people hope is the biggest gift you can give them, because they know that there's a way for them to make it, you know.
I feel the same way. And that's where my true passion, a part of it is mental health, because I have a son with bipolar. And, you know, that's he's given me full permission to tell his story. He's 19, well, he just turned 20, and he wants to help other people. And it's such a beautiful thing. But it's such a remarkable story, and the growth inside of that and the blessings inside of that are absolutely beautiful. Everything you know, my daughter's chronic illness for 13 years, my house burning down, you know, everything has, the blessings have so outshined all the pain. But what I had to get through to get to that point, to see that, you know, we all go through that to wake us up, to say,
yes.
look, this is part of your journey, to see, you know, that you are the phoenix rising. You are the phoenix. You can get through this, and you can get through this and heal yourself and heal other people. And not have to throw chairs. God, it did feel good to throw a chair, though. I do have to tell you that. It was very gratifying, but it was, but it really, it's not the way to go. If you want to grow, don't throw chairs. Find out why you are throwing chairs. But that's why we're in this retrograde, you know. My cousin Ben said, yeah, you're no fun anymore. But that's, you know, that's we go through, that's the retrograde right now, you know. It's getting in touch with our shadow side and healing that part of us so that we don't walk out on the streets and say something that we regret or go to our boss and, you know, get fired for.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people
something.
are still afraid of the shadow self, like it's something like a bad child we're supposed to put in the corner. And it's not. It's so important to embrace the shadow self. It needs to be integrated with the other half of us, and all of our parts are so needed and vital for the life experience here on Earth. So, you know, my best advice to listeners is, you know, if you're afraid of your shadow self, stop for a minute and really take a look at it, because you're going to end up finding so much beauty there that has helped you to be who you are in the current and who you are growing to become. It's valued, and it's got so many little gems to discover there that will really make you go, oh, wow. That's actually really beautiful, and embrace it.
I'm so glad you said that, because that is so true. That is so true. I mean, we no matter what we do, we always have a shadow side, always, because it's the necessary duality of human existence.
Yes.
You know, if we had no more shadow side,
love to be human.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we had no shadow side, we'd be dead, because we'd be done, and we're not done until we go home.
Right. And at home, we don't have the shadow self. That's why we like doing this. That's why we like humans and incarnating as human, is because it gives us that other aspect to work with that we don't normally have as home. So it's not a bad child.
Way more
to
exciting
sit in the
here.
corner. Yes. You know?
Yeah,
I had asked
it is.
one time when I did a past life regression with a hypnotherapist, and I had told her to ask, you know, what's all about this? And so I'm under hypnosis, and she finally, we're back in the spirit side and asking a couple questions about this lifetime. And I had her say, you know, so kind of, you know, what's that? And they're like, well, you know, she did stop incarnating for a little while and was working as a guide, but she loves to volunteer. And I listened to the recording, and I was just like, when I go home, my higher self and I are having a long discussion about this volunteer business because personally, in this body right now, I'd really like to go back to guiding from there. But my spirit team is always like, "Oh yeah, honey, you always think that," but no, you always are like, "Yeah, I'll go. It's so much fun. It's so exciting." It's like, we gotta have talk.
That reminds me of the meme. I love memes, but anyway, the meme. I don't know if you've seen it. That says when somebody crosses over, like, "Oh my God, I am never going back down there again. That sucked." And then below it, 9 months later, it's got the picture of that baby that looks really unhappy. It's like, dude, what the fuck? Because we always want to come back because it is exciting. It is. Yes. Duality.
Yeah. I used to tell my guides that, when I get done here, we're going to have a boxing match when I get over there, and I'm going to pound you silly for everything that I went through down here. And they would just laugh at me.
And then you're going to be like, when can I go back?
Exactly.
Oh, I'm going to find that meme and post. I'll post it on the Sacred Embers site tonight because that is funny stuff.
Yes, definitely. Okay, we only have a few minutes left, so I want to have everybody give some ideas or tools to use to help navigate this retrograde that we maybe hadn't popped. Any crystals, essential oils, or any other suggestions you guys have?
I'm gonna channel this one.
I've got a list of crystals that when I was researching it, I found Amazonite, black tourmaline, clear crystals, fluorite, and hematite. And they said they're all good for making it through because of the different properties they carry.
Yeah.
And I've got them all in my pocket right now, and they probably won't be leaving until August.
Oh, I love it. But yes, those are all excellent choices. Black tourmaline is an awesome protection stone. And your Amazonite is kindness, friendships. So it'll help with helping better communication, along with being more friendly in your communication. So those are all really good stones that you were able to find info on and carry in your pocket. Love that.
Well, I'm a rock hound. I've got plenty of stones, so
yeah,
it's nice to know what to use them for and how to combine them.
Well, I'm getting and I'm just channeling what comes to me, but I'm getting carnelian, a big carnelian. And what they're telling me is that carnelian is going to be good for grounding you and keeping you level. It's sort of like I'm seeing the I'm seeing the first three chakras, the first three base chakras, which is about the physical body, and it's about calming your fight or flight, which is what makes you speak inappropriately, is coming from that fight or flight. This is all coming from spirit, and so the stones that Kevin said are fabulous. The carnelian is going to help keep you grounded and level. Put it in your bathtub. Take some Epsom salt bath. Get to the ocean. If you can't get to the ocean, walk barefoot outside. And they're showing me put your hands up towards the sky, and your bare feet firmly planted on the ground, and then bring it to your heart. And that's what I'm being shown.
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I love that they brought up the orange carnelian because with the throat chakra, orange is the complementary color. And it's also the color for the sacral chakra, okay? And, you know, our sacral chakra is the I feel chakra, and the throat chakra is our I speak chakra. And with the influence of Mercury Retrograde being so heavy on communication, these colors, so the colors relating to these are blue and orange. Orange is primarily the sacral chakra's color, and blue is primarily the throat's. But their complementary colors are the reverse of each other. So it's really good to bring color into play because color holds an awesome vibration. Every color brings another level into the body, all 4 layers of your body. So working with the orange and the blues will really help you navigate through a retrograde, as well as foods with those colors. Don't forget, your physical body needs nourishment. And as much as we're talking about how we're communicating, the body needs everything. So, you know, lean towards like carrots and oranges and peaches and tangerines, and, you know, you get into your blueberries and plums and blue potatoes, asparagus. Asparagus, I know it's green, but asparagus is a superfood that is related to the throat chakra. So it's awesome to incorporate those things in as well. If you're really needing some aromatherapy added in, you can do like frankincense, sage. Some of the others that are a little more orange related would be like gardenias and sandalwood, orange, of course, smell of orange. So these are some other tools that you can use to navigate the retrograde to help your physical being be a little more in the flow with the energy that you're getting impacted from. And you'll be surprised that it'll help to kind of take the edge off. One of the other ones that I love to use a lot during retrograde is rosemary.
Oh,
rosemary
I love
helps
rosemary.
Memory, and it's very good for brain function. And it's calming. So people who have anxiety or any kind of nervous issue, rosemary. Smell some rosemary. Clip it off a plant and just keep a sprig in your pocket. And every now and then if you're feeling kind of like, whoa, everybody's getting crazy, or everything I'm saying is getting misinterpreted and I'm getting too anxious from it, grab some rosemary, take a moment, and just let yourself smell the scent, breathe it in, and you'll notice that within seconds your anxiety level is going to drop down.
That's great advice. I love that.
I think there's one more that you need to add to that list, though. Got to have chocolate. Yeah. That's the only way to get through anything.
Chocolate.
Your vitamin C.
I'm quoting SpongeBob. Chocolate.
But it is. It's so good for you, you know. Take a time, get outside if you can. If the weather's not permitting, get close to a window. Just absorb a little UV through the eyeballs, you know. Self-care.
Yeah, Spirit says if you can get out once.
Is your number one. Yeah.
Spirit says if you told me that what I just channeled, if you can get out once and put your hands outward facing towards the sky and then bring it to your heart, that's bringing Spirit into your heart. and it's helping to heal you. So, yeah, outside is important.
Yes, it is. It is. Even if you have allergies.
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of them to the outdoors, but I'll tell you what, it is still the best thing to help reset and center, you know. And don't be afraid to disconnect from people if you need to. I think that's something we don't give ourselves enough permission to do. And it really is a self-permission that, you know what, it's okay to say, you know what, not today. How about next week? Or how about in a couple of days? But you know, take the time, because this is such a, Mercury retrogrades are such a wonderful time to do the self-care, that review and reflect time, and kind of disconnect from the rest of the people if we're needing to allow ourselves to process and heal. We always need to take that time. So give yourself permission to do it.
Totally necessary. It's part of the dark night of the soul, too, which
yes, it is.
Helps the awakening process.
Yes. We may need to do that on a topic one night, Dark Nights of the Soul.
Oh, my God. I'm in on that one. I don't know how many times I got to do that, but I've had a couple.
I'm the same way. I'm done with those.
Oh, my God. Make sure I'm on that night.
Yeah, we'll have to plan. We'll do that one after we're out of retrograde.
Yeah,
that
there you
sounds
go.
good, because I'll try to keep my potty mouth in check, but no promises.
Well, if you sing it, it should be okay.
I'll sing it. What happened to me? Doesn't it sound more prettier when I sing?
Of course, and it wouldn't be a show if you didn't sing.
You know, you guys, I'm a pirate. I can't help it. I was born a pirate. I'm going to die a pirate. But, you know, we're all real. I love you all. Thank you for putting up with me. It's Ryan's fault. He brought me in.
There you go.
Blame the dead guy, right? That's what he's saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Blame the dead guy.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, this was fun, you guys. I had a great night.
Me too.
It's
always fun.
Great topic.
Yeah.
Excellent advice. I love everything you guys shared. I learned a lot.
Me too.
Me too.
Yeah. And thank you, Shannon, for putting these Friday nights together, because I love this. The Lighthouse, just sitting back and talking about subjects where we can help people heal and grow.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm thrilled with how everything is going, and I so enjoy being able to sit and share stories and discuss topics to depth with you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and start closing us up, all right? So I want to really thank our, we did 2 hours.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem it, but.
Yeah.
No,
but hey,
it
good
doesn't.
company,
It went by quick. Good company. Yes.
Good
you
company.
guys are awesome.
So are you.
Thank you.
And so we want to remind our callers and our listeners that the Sacred Embers Network, we're here on Blog Talk Monday through Friday. Monday through Thursday, every show during the week, we have a little topic discussion, and we provide free mini readings to our callers. Try to call in early, and you'll be able to get on the air. Just remember, these are little mini snippets to your questions, And we would love for you to scope out our website at thesacredembersshow.wix.com. And all of the Sacred Embers team are listed there if you would like to book a session and be able to get a one-on-one attention and answer to all of your inquiries and messages from your loved ones in spirit. Join us next week on The Lighthouse. We'd love to have you join us and sit in for the conversation and discussion. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and thank you so much, Heather and Kevin, and for our team that was in the chat. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Good
night,
too.
everybody. Thank you, Shannon, for hosting.
Good night, guys.
Good night.